Welcome to the Rick Fuller podcast, presented by Rick Fuller, the team leader of the Rick Fuller team, which serves the San Francisco Bay Area and Sacramento County. Rick and his team have almost 1,000 five-star online reviews and have been honored as a distinguished small business by the California State Senate and Assembly. Rick is a community leader, national real estate coach, and real estate investing expert. I'm Christina Morales, a writer and marketing specialist, and today we're going to talk about the 5 reasons why we have an inventory crisis. There's a house for sale on my corner right down here, and last weekend, like it was a Disney parade. We had so many people blocking our street, and it's not even that great of a house. Original 1978 condition, and so I know that a lot of people are wondering what is going on. So Rick, I'm so glad you brought this topic up.
Well, I'm excited to talk about it because there's not a question that I get more often than, Rick, how's the market? And everybody wants to know what's happened to the market, whether they're thinking about buying a home, thinking about selling a home, or they own one and they just want to keep a pulse on what's happening to home values. Typically, across the country, 75%, 3 out of 4 people's wealth come from their home, from their real estate holdings. And so people have a pulse on what's happening, and we are in a crazy real estate market.
That's so true. And as the team leader of the Rick Fuller team and real estate expert, I'm sure you're swamped with questions specifically to this unique market. Like, you've been in this for over a decade. I'm sure you've never seen anything like this. What specific questions are you getting for this season?
Well, this is actually, Christina, year number 18. I can't believe it. This
Wow.
is year number 18 that I've been in the real estate business. And I have been through various markets. I have been through markets where there's so many homes for sale that every street has a for sale sign, and every street has multiple for sale signs. Matter of fact, for those that have watched some of the movies on Netflix, they use my image of one of the houses that I have listed in a community where every home on that street has a for sale sign. And I've seen that market, and then I've seen this market. We've seen it before, and I saw this market in about 2004, 2005, and there just isn't enough homes to meet the demand. There just aren't enough homes on the market. And you're gonna go on and we're gonna talk about why that is. There's just not enough homes that are being built to meet the demand for real estate.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about 5 reasons why we have an inventory crisis. So can you share number 1 with us?
Yeah, so number 1, and most people do not realize this. They don't even think about it. But did you know that there was a baby boom about 34 years ago, Christina? Here's the numbers. This comes from the census. And in 1950, the U.S. had a population of about 150 million people. In 1980, the U.S. had a population of 226 million people. And today, we have a population of nearly 330 million people. Since 1950, our population has doubled. And there was a boom of births about 33, 34, even 35 years ago, where there were more people born that year than many previous years. And we're seeing today those 34-year-olds become first-time home buyers and picking up much of the available inventory. Today, the average first-time home buyer is 34 years old. And so that boom partly is absorbing all of the inventory that's available and causing us to not have very many homes for sale on the market. And you know, Christina, this is happening even amongst what you and I talk about. You and I wrote a book called The Great Migration, and it's this discussion about people moving from urban environments like San Francisco, where a recent article indicated that 649% increase of people moving out of the city of San Francisco. And then they're moving to their first destination is the East Bay, East County, the surrounding communities, Contra Costa, Alameda County, Solano County. And then from those counties, they are moving to Sacramento And this migration from urban to suburban to even rural, as they now move from Sacramento and throughout the state of California, there is a migration occurring where they are now moving to places like Texas, Tennessee, Washington, Oregon, Arizona, New Mexico, all very, very popular destinations. There's a meme that's going around right now that Governor Newsom is the realtor of the year for Texas.
Oh, no.
Nobody has sent more people to Texas than our governor. Now, this is not a political conversation,
Right.
but it does illustrate the point that there is a migration that's occurring. We call it the Great Migration, much like what we talked about in our fifth grade textbooks about the migration of people moving from Oklahoma to San Francisco and California in search of gold in the late 1800s. Today, we have a U-turn. And now they are moving they're not a Western hoe, but there's an Eastern hoe to various parts of the country. And so all of that is creating and absorbing inventory. And so we just don't have enough homes for sale. And the number one reason is because of the increase in demand for property.
And obviously we're in the East Bay in California. Are other states also having low inventory rates?
It is a national problem. We have a network of people. We call it Rick's Pros. They're all over the United States and Canada. And every time I talk to them, they say the same thing. It's almost like there's an echo in the room when I'm talking to other real estate brokers, other real estate teams across the country. They too do not have enough inventory.
Really?
Now, the other interesting thing, and I'm talking about the migration, which is there's a very real economic, but then there's this emotional or even intrinsic transition that we've had. If you think about it, real estate has become more valuable to people, even amongst COVID. When the government told us to stay home, they told us to go to your home, stay home. That's what they said. When we went out to restaurants before, we'd eat inside. Today we do a delivery. We have Uber Eats. They come by our house, they drop it off, and we eat from home. Today, our kids school from home. Today, colleges are doing Zoom online from home. Your gym has been closed for several months, and people are working out at home. And so not only is the economic value of real estate to have increased significantly, but we've also seen, I would call it the intrinsic or the emotional value of real estate has increased significantly because people are spending a lot more time in their homes. And when we have an opportunity to serve them and help them transition from one home to the next, some of the things that we never heard about before are beginning to reemerge, like, hey, Rick, I really want a home office. That's really important. And I'll need 2 of them, or I'll need 3 of them because my kids are schooling from home. My wife is working from home. I'm working from home. I need high-speed internet. I need a tech center. Like, that's what I need. Or others might say something like, I need an additional room to work out. I want to have a workout room. I want to put a treadmill. I want to put a bike. I want to have a workout room. Or others might say, you know what? I have an elderly family member, and with COVID, I don't want them to go to a nursing home or retirement home. Can I do an ADU and put it in my backyard? Can we buy a house that has a casitas or a junior house or a junior ADU? And so I think even the emotional and intrinsic value of real estate has increased, and that demand for real estate is what's absorbing so much of the inventory or the homes that are on the market.
Mm-hmm. And you're talking about 34-year-olds also in the baby boom, and we're hearing a lot on the news that many people are facing financial hardship. They're getting laid off. It seems like this group of 34-year-olds would be the most susceptible to job cutbacks and employment hits. Are you finding this to be the case? I mean, obviously, it seems like they're buying a lot of the homes, but it seems like they wouldn't be able to.
Well, we thought with COVID and people losing their jobs that we would see less buyer demand in the market.
Yeah.
We also thought, Christina, we'd see more inventory because if you remember, there was the rent moratorium, right? So there was a foreclosure moratorium that was placed. Lenders were doing things called forbearances, where they would say, you don't have to make this month's payment or the next 3 months payment. So we thought that might be an issue. We saw vacation homes that were literally shut down where you couldn't have a vacation home. And so we anticipated with people losing their job, we anticipated with vacation homes not being able to operate nearly as much as what they were previously under before COVID, we anticipated that a lot of these conditions would produce inventory to the market.
Right.
We also anticipated they might bring a few foreclosures or even short sales.
Yeah.
Christina, none of it happened. We're here now. We're moving away from those restrictions. Rental homes are back open. Tenants have often found new jobs, have been able to pay their rent and get back on track with that. We're finding that those that have lost their job are picking up different kinds of jobs. They may not work in the city anymore. They're working in the suburbs from home. There's new employment opportunities. And we never saw any of that additional inventory begin to materialize. Today, there are very few actual foreclosures, bank-owned homes, short sales. We also called REO homes, real estate owned. Very few of them on the market.
That's so shocking to me. Like that, exactly. It's the exact opposite of what I thought would happen. And so what's your reason number 2 for the low housing supply?
So number 2, and this is no surprise to anyone, and it's low interest rates. The low interest rates, they have been fuel to this fire. They have absolutely lit the real estate market on fire and has enabled people to do several things. One is the low interest rates enabled them to afford, first-time home buyers, be able to afford a home in a market where home values are rising. Because the lower your interest rate, the lower your monthly payment. It also created bigger buyer pools. So a homeowner who put the home on the market had more people knocking on their door ready to see their property, or more agents that would show up to see their home as a result of low inventory, because the buyer pool, more people could afford real estate, the lower the interest rate. You know what else it did, Christina? A lot of the savvy people that I talked to that are savvy real estate investors that had a mortgage on the property, they transitioned from a 30-year fixed in these low interest rate environments to a 15-year fixed mortgage. And so low interest rates are one of the key benefits to this market. It's one of, I think, the silver lining of this market, and it's added fuel to this fire. And it's added benefit to both the seller, anyone selling their property, because there are more people that are available now to buy that property. And it's been extremely beneficial to those purchasing a home because they're able to get a lower interest rate. They're able to get a better loan program. No more of these pick a payment plans, negative amortizations. Those don't exist anymore. Very few adjustable rate mortgages. We see 15 or we see 30. That's primarily what we see come across our desk on a regular basis. And these low interest rates made homes more affordable, made prices more affordable. And that's saying a lot in the San Francisco Bay Area, where our median price point here in the Bay, it's nearly $750,000. That's our median price point. You venture into San Francisco, you're going to be spending over $1 million. And even in Far East County, we're seeing the median home price over $500,000. And so every little bit helps, and these low interest rates. And the amazing thing about the low interest rates is the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, came out a couple of weeks ago and said, we anticipate keeping these interest rates very, very low for the next 2 years.
Wow.
So we're going to be seeing that all the way to the end of 2022. I guess they're not concerned about inflation. They're going to keep interest rates low. And so if you haven't refinanced, first off, why? Because I listen on the radio or on TV, and it's like every other commercial is like, hey, low interest rates are not going to last forever. And in theory, they can't, but they've been around for a very long time, and a lot of people are accustomed to that. So they haven't refinanced. They haven't moved from a 30-year to a 15-year. Now's the time to do it. Picked up that second home or that vacation home. Low interest rates help you do that.
I'm glad we're talking about interest rates. I have a question. It just seems like they're dancing back and forth like the needle on an old stereo equalizer. And I use that analogy because you used to work at Circuit City back in the day.
Where service is state of the art, right?
That's awesome. So you know what I'm talking about. It used to have the needle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Although Christina, that was way before my time. There was some record players when I worked there, at least none that I'm willing to confess to.
Okay, the little, what is it? The lights that dance up and down on the graph.
Equalizer, sure.
Yes. So that's what it seems like. I see all these ads on TV, on Facebook, and they're jumping around from like 2.7, 3.25. Why is it jumping around? And then how do we know when it's a good time to get that low rate? Even though they're all low, but how do we get the lowest rate?
Well, historically, you know, when you just said 2.75 to 3.25, think about what we're saying.
Yeah.
Think about how low that interest rate is. Think about your parents or your grandparents that bought in an interest rate environment. I bought my first home at 7.25%.
Okay.
I have family members that say I bought at 18%. And you think about it, we're talking about it's volatile, yes, because it's tied to various indexes, it's tied to the treasury,
Mm-hmm.
it's indirectly affected by the Fed rate, and all of these different factors that exist. But when we stop and we pause and we think, we're talking about the difference between 2.75 to maybe 3.5%. It is so low. It is so affordable for people to buy real estate now with those lower interest rates. If those interest rates were higher, you know what typically happens is somebody who could afford a 4-bedroom home can now only afford a 3-bedroom home. Or if the interest rates are even higher than that, those who could afford a 3-bedroom home are now in a condo or a townhome. And those are in a condo and townhome. As interest rates rise, they're now renting. They just can't buy. They can't enter into the market. And low interest rates really help make that possible today.
Thank you. That's a great answer. And let's move on to number 3. What do you have for us?
So the third reason that inventory is low is that there is limited land to build on. Very limited land to build on. We're in the San Francisco Bay Area. We've got offices throughout the Bay and Sacramento. And if you go to San Francisco, there is zero available lots. It just doesn't exist. It's one of the beautiful things about real estate. With currency, money, you can print more of it. And the government likes to do that. Not with real estate. There's only a limited supply. And you have a unique factor with real estate. Every lot's a little bit different. Every view is a little bit different, and every property is a little bit different. Some have upgrades, some don't have upgrades. Some are 2-story, some are single stories. Some have certain amenities, others don't. Every property is unique. Every property is special. And that's one of the challenges that we're seeing is that throughout the San Francisco Bay Area and much of the greater Sacramento region, there's not a lot of available, buildable residential land.
So I don't want to contradict you, but our friend Brian said I have to start throwing you some more hard balls.
Yeah.
So here around, we're in Antioch and Brentwood, and we go to Sacramento a lot. I know you do too. There's a ton of open land, like Highway 4 along I-80. Why can't they build on that? Or it seems like we have a lot of land out here. Why are we having a housing shortage?
Yeah, you jump on Highway 4 or 680 and you look at the beautiful Golden Hills. Or the land adjacent to the highways, and you think, wow, why aren't they building there? Did you know that there are ordinances, Christina, that prevent you from building on the hilltops?
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that so much of the land that you see is not available land, but has actually been purchased and acquired? And in the Bay Area, often by the regional parks, especially throughout Contra Costa County. So many of the Golden Hills that you're looking at, and I call them the Golden Hills because I had a client one time that came in from the East Coast, and he came in to look at property. His company was relocating him, and he looked up at the hills and they were green. And he said, "Oh, I love these beautiful green hills." And I didn't have the heart to tell him, like, they're only here for maybe a couple of months, maybe December to February, maybe March, we have these beautiful green hills, and then they're golden brown. So by the time I took him back to the airport, I had to tell him, hey, those hills that you see, they're beautiful. And there's great things you can do up there. There's a lot of hiking, mountain bike riding. You can go up there and go walking. There's reservoirs. But they're going to be brown when you come back in June. I guarantee it. I've been living in this area my entire life, and they're always brown in the summertime. They're always brown in usually the spring, the summer, and even the fall. And maybe we get a couple of months in the winter where they turn green. So a lot of that land is not buildable land. Let's take it a step further. And even land that is buildable is often not zoned in the general plan as residential. And so, for example, you don't often see a commercial building or industrial building and then a single family home right next to it anymore. You certainly don't see them do that fresh new development occurring where they develop an industrial property, a single family home, and another industrial. There's zoning that's occurring. There's commercial zoning, there's industrial zoning, there's manufacturing zoning, and there's residential zoning. And so much of the land that we look at and we see is not available for residential construction, preserved through ordinances, keeping construction off the hillsides to keep the aesthetics and the beauty of our community. Or you're going to find that it is owned by a regional park. The land that you referenced along Highway 4 and often that land is owned by Caltrans. And so some of that land is not available. Several years ago, when they expanded Highway 4, they had to eminent domain some of those properties, especially there in Pittsburgh and Bay Point. That was pretty common to expand Highway 4. Eminent domain is when the government takes over that property and then pays that homeowner what is prescribed as fair market value for it. So a lot of what we see, it looks like there's available land, but when we actually look at the general plan, there's not a lot of available residential land to build anymore throughout the San Francisco Bay Area. Very few.
That's a great answer, and I didn't know all of that. Thank you. That makes sense, because I always look at it and I go, what do you mean there's not a whole lot of land? Thank you.
And so many people do.
Yeah, they need to have a sign up, but I guess that would ruin the aesthetics of the land. So let's move on to reason number 4 for the housing market shortage.
So reason number 4 was builder-imposed moratoriums. And let me tell you what I mean by that, because I've been using this phrase a lot. Builders 8, 10, 12 years ago chose not to build. Now, if you remember what happened 10 to 12 years ago, real estate values dropped significantly. Matter of fact, there were markets and communities where homes and condos and townhomes and land was worth a third of what it used to be. It's not that it reduced a third, but it reduced 2/3, and now it only held about a third of the value that it once did. In the city that we're currently in, the city of Antioch, home values today are about $500,000 is our median price property. But in the city of Antioch in 2009, the average home value was about $189,000. Wow. That's how low it was. And so builders thought it doesn't make sense, or what they would say is it doesn't pencil out to build. So you have this self-imposed, and I say self-imposed because some cities did not prevent them from building. Some municipalities or the county, they could have built, but they chose not to because the numbers just didn't make sense. And that gap in building has now created not enough homes. And we go back to my original point that there are more buyers into the market today. Average age of a first-time home buyer is 34 years old. They're picking up that inventory. We see nearly 330 million Americans today compared to 150 Americans that we saw back in the 50s. And so many of our homes were constructed in the 50s, 60s, and 70s in the Bay Area. And there's a gap of construction to meet that need. And the numbers didn't pencil out, and they didn't build. And now we're seeing the consequences of not having that kind of inventory.
Well, let's move on to number 5 because it ties into number 4.
Yeah, it does.
And that's the opposite. Now we're seeing a lot of building, right?
Well, now you drive and people are listening to this and they're saying, but Rick, I see cranes. Yes, you see them today. You didn't see them 5 years ago, and you certainly didn't see them 7, 8, and 10 years ago. We're seeing them today. And you say, well, isn't that going to fix the problem? Well, we got 2 challenges, Christina. Number 1 is the supply chain today is damaged. What do I mean by that? Well, have you tried recently to buy an appliance, a microwave, a stove, a range, a refrigerator? Yep. I tried to buy a refrigerator and I didn't need anything special. It was a basic refrigerator. Our refrigerator went out. I went to various stores, Home Depot, Lowe's. I went to some of the local appliance stores. None of them had an available refrigerator. There was nothing in stock. And I said, guys, I can't understand. Why not? I don't need anything special. I don't need an expensive refrigerator. I don't need anything specific. I just need a standard refrigerator. And they said, our supply chain is closed. Warehouses, manufacturing has been closed, and we have a backlog. Well, I'm giving you an example of a refrigerator. Let's now take that with all the different supplies and materials that are needed for real estate construction, especially brand new homes. How about windows? How about doors? How about flooring? How about all the other appliances in the property, countertops, right? Roofing material, on and on and on. There's a damaged link in the supply chain. You can't get these products on a regular basis. They're not available. They're on back order. Warehouses have been closed, especially with COVID. Workers are not working in close proximity, in close environments anymore. It's damaging the supply chain. And now we're seeing delays on construction. Let's go to number 2. Here's an interesting one. There's not only a damaged supply chain link in our environment today, but there's also a lack of skilled workers. A lack of skilled workers. You know, Christina, when you and I went to high school, the teacher said, hey, go get that 4-year degree. Computers are the way of the future. And that is true. And my daughter's getting her 4-year degree, maybe even more. And computers are the way of the future, and artificial intelligence and big data and all of these resources. But what happened is it caused a huge miss for our blue collar workers. It caused a huge miss for our skilled tradesmen. So we don't have enough skilled tradesmen. We don't have enough skilled framers. We don't have enough skilled roofers. We don't have enough skilled plumbers in the market today. So they can't build because the supply chain is broken. And then now you have the labor market, which is impacted because there just aren't the skilled workers needed to build the kind of real estate that we need. We increased the demand with the increase of population starting about 50 years ago, and now more than doubling in the last 70 years, the population of the state. And then you damage the supply chain, which means that you don't have enough inventory. And now you have what we have today, which is an inventory crisis.
Yeah, we're on, we see it from the front row seat because one of your agents, Megan, bought a new home, and she said that she was a month delayed because they didn't have any sliders. And I have another friend who bought a home and they were supposed to move in February and now it got pushed back to April. So not only do you have long waiting lists for new builds, but like you said, the supply chain is broken. So there's a lot going on. So here's the $1 million question. Are we in a housing crisis? And if so, how long do you project it to last?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball.
Why not?
But let me reach into my desk and but there is no doubt we're in an inventory crisis. Okay. We do not have enough homes to meet the demand. And though people are moving and they're migrating, and I've talked about that from urban to suburban to rural, but they're still moving into our community and even to the state of California. The state of California is relatively flat with its population growth. They're moving around a lot, but they're moving around a lot often the state. And those that are moving out, new people are moving in, often to Silicon Valley, and those areas are really exploding. And so I do think we absolutely have an inventory crisis. And this inventory crisis, which I think kind of goes to maybe your next question, your inventory crisis, what's interesting is with this inventory crisis that we're seeing, some people might think, well, that makes it a terrible time to buy a home. And that would actually make sense if you don't want to buy a product when there's not a lot of them available. Mm-hmm. But here's the difference is that real estate is an asset, not a liability. And it's not a commodity. It's real property. And when you own it and you move into it, this is the market that you actually want to buy real estate in. Because at some point, a person's going to make a purchase. They're going to move into the home. They're going to set up their bed, their couch, hang their flat screen TV, and they're not going to be thinking regularly about the real estate market. Mm-hmm. That's the market that you want to purchase in a market where there's not a lot of inventory. And why is that? Because that person's going to move in, they're going to settle in. And with this environment, we know that there's not enough inventory, there's a strong demand, and prices continue to rise. It also makes an incredible time for someone to sell their home. Many years ago, if we were to list or sell property, first off, it would be worth a fraction of what it is now. And you'd have to make a lot of repairs to the home. If you didn't have updated kitchen cabinets, you needed them. If you didn't have updated countertops, you needed them. Let's pull out the tile for the granite. All of that is off today. None of that is needed. Many of the repairs and things that people think they need to do, they no longer need to do. Why is that? Because there's a great demand for real estate, and there's not a lot of homes to choose from. In a market where there's lots of properties to choose from, it's very reasonable to think that their home needs to be the nicest home on the market. Today, when there's not a lot of inventory to choose from, very much the opposite. They can sell their property, obtain 100% market value for the home without having to invest nearly as much as they used to into the property. And so the irony in today's world and in the real estate market today, and even with this housing crisis, is the housing crisis produces opportunities. And those opportunities, for those that know how to exercise those opportunities and to be well positioned, will benefit from this market by owning real estate, by investing in real estate, and watching their home values continue to rise.
And we have a lot of buyers and sellers who are watching this right now, people who want to buy and want to sell. And we've been getting questions through Facebook. What should buyers do now to plan to buy a home in this busy market? How do you succeed? Because you've seen a ton of offers come in. I mean, I think Shelby said there was like 11 offers on one home and the price is going so high. How does the Rick Fuller team help buyers in this situation?
I have a lot of mentors in my life, and some of them are in person and others I just listen to on my podcast or an audio book. And I was listening to some guys on the radio several years ago, and it was a father, a son, and a grandfather. And somebody called in and said, if I have $5,000 to invest in real estate, where should I put that money? And it was almost like, Christina, everybody that was driving turned up their car stereo. Everybody stopped what they were doing to listen to the answer. And then what they did, these three guys said, Grandpa, would you handle this one? And so they gave the question to Grandpa. Grandpa, if you had $5,000 to invest in real estate, where would you invest it? And Grandpa, I think, gave a brilliant answer. He said, if I had $5,000 to invest in real estate, I would invest in my education. And I would tell you, whoever's asked that question, you're doing the right thing by listening to our podcasts. And Christina, you and I wrote books on these topics. We have a lot of other podcasts that are available. Connect with one of our team members that know the market. That's the key. They know the market. They thoroughly understand real estate and they understand the market. And they have one goal in mind: to provide you the kind of experience that you're excited to tell a friend about. And get a great lender. Not one that gives you a pre-qualification letter, not one that says, I think, or I hope, or I wish you could, but what you can actually afford. Because when you go out and look at property, you don't want to look at properties above your means and then find out you can't afford that home and you could afford something significantly less. Because what happens, Christina, then every other home you look at, you compare it to that property.
Definitely.
Well, it sure isn't like the one on Main Street. Yeah, well, the one on Main Street was $100,000 above your budget, right? So of course it's not going to be like the one on Main Street. But conversely, you don't want to buy a property below your means. And so knowing what your budget is and what is affordable for you, and then looking at those properties, you find a property that may be below your means, especially for a first-time home buyer, you might be discouraged. So get a great lender so they can tell you what your means actually are, and somebody that's not going to recommend or promote a loan product that's either adjustable or doesn't have long-term sustainability. In today's environment, I can't imagine why anyone wouldn't want to have a 30 or 15-year fixed mortgage. So I would invest in your education and get the right people in your life that can help guide you and walk you through this process. You don't have to go through it alone. stand on the shoulders of people who've been there and done that before. Our teams had the privilege of serving over 1,000 people and have nearly 1,000 five-star reviews. They can help you. So just give us a call or send us an email or contact us, and we'll get you connected with the right team member.
Awesome. And I want to hit on one last question. What if a seller doesn't want a ton of traffic in their home? We're in COVID still. What if they don't want the parade in front of their house and people circling in their house?
Well, it's a great question, and it's actually a very common question.
Okay.
And oftentimes, for many, many reasons, you described earlier that there was a parade of people out looking at your neighbor's property. And for many reasons, maybe they have a young child at home, or maybe an elderly family member, or maybe they're just concerned about COVID and people coming through their home. Well, with today's technology, there's a lot that can be articulated online about a property before they ever get there, either qualifying that they want to see that property, or disqualifying the property. Some of that technology that we're now using, Matterport tours, where you could literally 3D yourself through the property, a drone aerial footage that not only shows you the home, the roof from the community, but you can see the neighboring school, the neighboring park, the neighborhood, how many homes in the area have pools. You could look at all of that. How does this lot compare? And we're using great professional photography, not your iPhone, not your old Kodak, and certainly, what do you call the old Polaroid, right?
Right.
We don't use that stuff anymore. We bring in professional photographers so that we can accurately capture in its very best light the home. So this technology helps qualify someone that they may want to see the property, or disqualify them after they look through the photos and the videos and they find out it's not right for them. So by utilizing this technology, we're able to minimize traffic. Minimize traffic makes this process a little more comfortable, a little less inconvenient, and allows homeowners to reach the absolute highest price for their home in a reasonable amount of time with the least amount of inconvenience.
Oh, that's so great to know. Thank you. I know so many people are concerned, so that's a great answer. And that's all the time we have for today. I'm so thankful that you have a team of specialists to help guide those of us who aren't experts in real estate. We need someone who we can trust to partner with us on this journey. And this journey seems to be getting crazier and crazier. So I'm so glad you have your specialists. And if anyone who's watching this, if you're looking for a real estate specialist to help buy or sell your home, you can contact Rick and his team at 888-950-RICK or on rickfuller.com. So join us next week when Rick will share with us getting the right people in the right roles for your real estate team. So this is a perfect one for agents. Thank you for spending part of your day with us, and we can't wait for you to join us next time. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.